BioShock Infinite is the best game I've played in 2013. Hands down. I shit you not. If you haven't played this game yet, go do it right now. No, seriously, stop the video and go play it. I don't care how you get it, just go play it. Okay. In 2007, 2K Games released the critically acclaimed BioShock, a first-person horror survival RPG that was a spiritual successor to 1999's System Shock 2. In it, you play as a young man seeking his destiny when a sudden plane crash strands him to the ocean, where he finds a city lost to time and submerged to the depths of the sea. Exploring the concept of objectivism and giving commentary on novelists like Ayn Rand and George Orwell, the game pits you against fearful enemies and creative challenges that tells a narrative all its own. The sequel, BioShock 2, had the player submerged once again, except this time playing an ill-fated Big Daddy, one of the former enemies of the previous installment. BioShock Infinite returns to the roots of the franchise, except changes the formula just enough to stay interesting. This time around, your name is Booker DeWitt, a former Pinkerton detective on a mission to locate and rescue a young woman named Elizabeth. Instead of the likes of Andrew Ryan and his decrepit city dwellers, Infinite looks at the religious zealot Zachary Comstock. This self-proclaimed prophet has chosen to look in the opposite direction for his fantastical cityscape. Instead of plunging to the sea to create an underwater rapture, he sets forth to the skies in the floating city of Columbia.
Right away, the player notices similarities between the original BioShock and Infinite. There's a lighthouse, the ascension or descension to the city, and ultimately the arrival, almost mimicking the previous games. However, when Infinite inserts you into the city, things start to take a turn. You're followed oddly around by a couple of English strangers, who seem very interested in you. They play a small game of chance with you and send a telegraph saying not to pick number 77. Instantly, you can feel an eerie sense of something looming. Unlike the first two games, Infinite's sense of scary is not in the creepy atmosphere or disturbing and frightening antagonists, but instead it's in its story. It makes you feel unnerved as you enter a raffle and do, in fact, receive ball number 77. Things take another turn as you're bombarded as the false shepherd, someone the prophet has declared the outlaw in this town. Somehow the marks on your hand match those of the marks on the shepherd is reported to have, and as such the police begin to intertangle with you. The rest of Infinite is the constant struggle between you and Comstock, trying to stay one step ahead of the other in an all-out struggle for Elizabeth, the girl who can wipe away your debt. You'll make your way through the game meeting a cast of interesting and entangled characters. Cornelius Slate, who happens to be a former commander of yours from the army, helps you to realize some awful truths about your past.
The Tin Soldier has taken credit for the deeds of the real ones. Now your companion, young lady, he wrapped himself in glory on December 29, 1890.
And Daisy Fitzroy, the rebellious anarchist leader of the scorned Vox Populi, a rebellion group of lower-class workers and the civilly discriminated in a fight for control of Columbia. The Big Daddy never actually shows up in this game. However, his would-be aerial counterpart, the Songbird, is a fearsome birdman who patrols the skies and is an ever-vigilant watch over Elizabeth and, as such, you. He's powerful and dangerous, but his part in the story takes more precedent than his actual efforts in the game. Unlike the Big Daddy, the Songbird is not a regular enemy NPC, and there's only one of him, who you rarely encounter. While he is a constant reminder of the dreadful power Comstock employs, he can only be summoned via a special song played on a special instrument, and this only happens once or twice in the game. He is eventually summoned to be an ally towards the end, and can be used for destructive means. The story in the later half of the game progresses from the strange to the bizarre, taking instead a full-on twist into the realm of science fiction. Elizabeth, who you learn early on has special time-warping powers, becomes even more important than you thought. With questions of multiple realities, predestiny, and the choices we ultimately make weighing heavily on the story, it would probably take a whole separate video just to explain the later half of the game. Let me say that if you're into some light sci-fi technology, but some heavy sci-fi philosophy, then you're in for a treat with this game. Without spoiling too much, I have to say, the ending twist was one I had actually not seen coming, and I was constantly guessing which way it would move. The game's story is one you might be inclined to play through twice to catch all of the subtle clues, and with irrational games including the sought-after 1999 mode, a harder, more classical FPS approach to the story, you might just do that. Now I need to talk about one thing. If you've been reading anything about this game, there is one issue that has seemingly come up quite often amongst the gaming public. This game is pretty racist. Let me say this to you right now. This game is absolutely brilliant, and the way it handles the racial inequality and other likened matters is swift and excellent. Before you're stumbled into another internet debate with people white knighting the crap against this game, let me explain it to you like this. The game uses racism and such as a means to tell a historical fiction. These are issues that actually existed in early 20th century America, and as such, just to browse over that fact would be unrealistic and actually probably more offensive. The game obviously sets it up straight away that the racists are the bad guys. There is no moral gray area here. You see the lower class and minority NPCs being treated rudely and inhumanely. You sympathize with them throughout the game, and as such you understand that the narrative was expecting you to. Remember, the racism in this game is supposed to make you feel uneasy, uncomfortable, and apologetic. It's because it's what actually happened in America. This game takes a stab at both American history and current political ideology. The racist, xenophobic, jingoistic nationalism and twisted worship of the Founding Fathers reflects the culmination of our past into the society we know of it as today. Comstock represents the modern social conservative leader, the Tea Partier, and the American who honestly believes that the Mexicans are going to take away his job. The game is a social representation and commentary of common-day America. BioShock 1 and 2 were to the fiscal policies of the past via Ayn Rand.
I am Andrew Ryan. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? I chose rapture.
As Infinite is to the social concerns of today. It's a smart, artful, and well-crafted romp through America's past and reflected present. You should be offended by it, but in a way that makes you want to change something, not complain about it over the internet. The core aspect of this game is, as always, first-person combat. Booker is given a variety of weapons to destroy and dismember his enemies, all while making it seamless and intuitive. Replacing plasmids from the previous games are newly dubbed Vigors. These plasmid predecessors grant you most of the same telekinetic and psychic powers we've seen in the previous installments. They're fun to use and easy to master, and they become important parts of key plot points. They never feel like they take anything away from the gun combat, and they add an excellent alternative to ballistics. The combat in the game is, at least it seemed to me, far more frantic than in previous BioShock games. While I remember there were parts of the game where there were multiple enemies on screen, I don't remember being this many, and that's an ample plus. Your vigors and weapons are one thing, but the game also adds the addition of rail systems. While they're mainly used for transportation through the game, they play an interesting part in combat. You're able to fire while in mid-rail as to be expected, but you can use them to gain heights not usually seen in an FPS and slam yourself into your opponents, usually taking them out in a single blow. Another new key feature is the device used to grind on the rails. Your arm-mounted hook that you receive early in the game is used as a melee combat device, allowing you to switch to striking your opponent when you're low on ammo or if you simply just feel like it. When an enemy is low on health, you can grab him with the hook and perform a finishing move that plays a brisk, gruesome scripted event that shows them mangled, decapitated, or bloodied in an assortment of wonderfully animated deaths. Elizabeth even adds her own new dynamic to the game. When she begins to follow you, no longer is it simply a follow the leader with an expected annoyance of saving her from harm. Instead, Elizabeth is capable of taking active cover and never sustains damage. What's more is she can go around and scavenge health, ammo, and salts, used for replenishing spent vigor, from the level or dead bodies while you're busy in combat. She'll even occasionally throw you money when you need it, and it's handy with a lockpick to get through most locked doors. Occasionally, her powers over time and space aren't just limited to the story. She's able to bring forth objects from other realities during a battle. These can range from a freight hook so you can grapple, to some weapons to use during battle, or cover you can hide behind. The game takes upon the usual BioShock tradition of an RPG system, as always, with upgradable weapons, powers, and health. Booker can find packages of gear, or clothing, scattered across the world. These includes hats, shirts, and pants. Each piece you find has a special attribute to it, like a hat that has a 50% chance of your enemy catching fire when you hit them, or pants that allow you to more often to critically strike enemies when you land on them from the rails. There's also a set of new non-combat features to the BioShock experience that I thought were pretty neat. First, it's the use of the rechargeable shield. While you might be thinking it's the type of nonsense that we've seen in the Halo franchise, it's actually very useful while still remaining challenging. It won't recharge while in mid-combat, but it does reflect enough damage to be effective when it counts. The other new feature is a navigation arrow. While many games before, even BioShock, have used HUD pointers to direct you like a compass to the next objective point, Infinite actually paints a small arrow on the ground and shows you where you're expected to go. This is quite useful in the more open environments, and as such there are plenty of areas to explore to gain new weapons, story extras like audio recordings, and so on. It's very easy to get lost and not be sure where your next objective marker is located. The only gripe I had with this game was that the RPG system felt a bit too basic. It's always been this way in BioShock games, but I would have appreciated it if you could have upgraded my character a little more. Other than that, perfect gameplay. BioShock Infinite is a beautiful, amazing game to look at. The visuals are stunning and the textures are vivid and bright, and while the original BioShock were well designed in their own right, most of these games were spent cramped in dark corridors or tubes. With Columbia being a city suspended in air, you're constantly exposed to open environments with beautiful skies, backdrops, foregrounds, and characters. It's sunny, bright, and amazing. The musical stylings of BioShock games are always well received, ranging from the orchestral scores to the small bits of period music playing in certain set pieces. A nice touch to mention about the music is a dynamic combat score. This isn't new to video games per se, but it was a nice touch. There are key sounds that play when an enemy is killed, and when the last enemy in a wave is dead. These are simple things, but they add a wonderful touch as you can breathe a sign of relief when you hear the final crescendo that a battle is over. BioShock Infinite is, as mentioned, basically a flawless game. While I'm sure there are those out there that will find things to nitpick about it, personally I can find practically none. The story's ending, again without spoiling anything, does leave you a bit to be desired, and you're going to be asking a lot of questions, but even that can be excused. All in all, what BioShock Infinite does well, it does extremely well. And what it does such a fine job anyway that it's all very passable. For that, I give BioShock Infinite a 10 out of 10, unsurprisingly. And, disregarding possible games to come out this year, I would certainly like to see BioShock Infinite as Game of the Year, if not at least an honorable mention. BioShock Infinite delighted me in ways I haven't felt in a while playing an FPS, and it was a fantastic entry into the already stunning BioShock franchise. Again, I implore you, go out and play this game. It's a must. This has been the Suave Zuave's Modern Game Review. If you'd like to see more reviews like this of classic video games and modern video games, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.